or getting other organizations to bring their resources to bear would go a long way in saying this thing is encompassing. I mean, I've often said that it goes from concept to consumption, and it's everything in between. So that means that it's, you know, Becky and her script, and then moving through me and policy, and Terry and Vaughn, and then, you know, Mark's services right down to you guys into the audience. And without everybody's knowledge of the opportunities, without everybody contributing, it doesn't work the same way. It's not the same. So I don't. That's not exactly a direct answer to your question, but
I get it. He's overtaxed. Yeah, we would love to have more people get out there, but you know, we have to figure out where Iowa film people are, and then try and figure out how to communicate them, because it's becoming a more tight-knit community, but it's still very loosely organized. So it's a challenge because he's busting his tail just to try and keep up with the workload to make sure the program is running. So I think there's probably a lack in marketing, which is, I would add to that list. I think there's an opportunity for people here to actually understand marketing. Marketing has become decentralized with social media and guerrilla media. There's a lot of different ways to market something. So always depending on the studio to market your film is not the way to go. If you have an indie, you should understand the marketing and support opportunities to really push both your indie and your film. Even if you get a deal, you are your best marketer to a point, and you have to understand how to communicate with the marketing department if you get a distribution deal. And if you don't have a distribution deal, you have to understand how to market and get the word out. So there's a definite opportunity to build and expand that community as well. Mark, you were going to say something.
Yeah, the first step is go to the website and download the PDF that is the simple, basic descriptions of the program and get you started. And, you know, Tom's here. So we got part of it, and we'll need to keep him going. And I can say, because I get to have an opinion, and is that we moved from tourism to business development on purpose to help get a little extra coverage because we knew that it would be successful. Certainly, I think it's a little surprising that it went this successful this fast. And one of the dangers in business is to become, to some degree, too successful too fast, and you can tip yourself over. I want us to get Tom, the film office, better staffed, and have the business development side of DED look at really focusing in on this, getting some support to make sure it goes. But I think it's also interesting that we're scraping the very beginnings, and we're this successful, and we haven't even really looked into the possibility that what else fits in this program? Why isn't Ford doing all their F-150 commercials here that would fit inside the thresholds of the program? That will help our infrastructure, that General Mills and Meredith and all of those people actually really grow here and around this program. Then you have strength in infrastructure. And we haven't even gotten their attention yet, and they're still thinking about it. Wait till they get started.
Back.
I'm Chris Graham, a banker. I run a bank, a small Iowa State bank in southwest Iowa. And I was just thinking about the structure.
Staying in heavy here.
John invited me to come along. But trying to understand the structure, you know, I understand the tax credit portion of it, but as bankers, we're always looking for collateral if we're going to invest in any, or invest, I think is the right word, in any of these kind of projects. And so what has been typical of the projects that have been done so far, and has there been primarily private investment as opposed to traditional bank investment in these kind of things?
Well, both of the projects that I've been involved with, the for-profit ones had private investors, and most of the capital came from Iowa. You know, the finance season did not do well financially, and 16 to life, we have high hopes and high expectations for it, but we're still chasing distribution issues.
So the risk factors have been too high for traditional bank loans. Would that be true?
For indies, probably. For industrial sake, where it's a portfolio business, where a studio may have 10 or 100 to cross-collateralize, they have more access to capital. So it's all about scale. But it's a risk business.
Even in the indie ones, though, I would think that if you could utilize, and I think you'll allow this, I have never really asked you, if you could utilize the tax certificates as collateral and make it a bridge loan, a shorter term bridge loan, I would think that would be one way for banks to get involved and get their feet wet with the process.
And as with that, is that pretty rock solid? In other words, those tax credits are readily marketable, as you mentioned, from 88 to 92%.
Yeah,
There's a ready market for that
you
also.
can sell the tax, there's 5 different entity types that you can sell tax credits to. They include the insurance companies for the monies and credits tax, the banks for the franchise tax, and I may have those
That's right.
backwards, but help me out here.
It's everything except for gaming.
Yeah.
It's
So, I mean, there's a lot of entities out there in the state of Iowa that can utilize these
every individual.
and be supportive of the film industry in Iowa if they buy them.
I mean, we're just expanding it. Terry and I are working on a PBS show. That's not a film per se, but it is film-like. It's going to be produced as a chunk of production, and will qualify for the tax credits because we're going to shoot it as though it's a film, although it'll air over a period of time. But it's a chunk of money that's going to be collateralized. So there's a lot of different ways to look at this to be creative, and then you can start interfacing with, if you have a film like a PBS show that has an educational mission, there's ways to collaborate with other pieces of funding. National Science Foundation, humanities. There's a lot of ways to look at this and start getting this and be a little more creative and really leverage what is a tremendously positive business environment for this industry. But that doesn't mean it's all readily obvious. There's some homework and some experimentation to be done. We're glad to have you. Go back and tell your friends. Question?
Yes, I'm Dennis Wood's daughter. Mark.
Nice to see you.
I have a question for Becky. First, let me say that as a former politico, I can't emphasize how much it is important to elect people like Mark. And I can't imagine if Terry Branstad were elected governor in the future what would happen with this program. But my question for Becky is, I think I read that you got some research money to develop this. Oh, by the way, I've got credits in Hollywood. I wrote for television, and my downfall was I produced a movie. I wish it was that funny. I lost my goddamn house. So then I came back to Iowa, and I got flooded out 4 times. So I'm just happy to be here. Anyway, Becky, on a better note, you got some research money, some grant money I read, and to everybody else, do you think there's a possibility I could get students from the university in some kind of intern program? I don't know if I could academicize it or whatever I could have to do.
It's not pornography.
The tricky thing is because I've done a lot of documentary work and then doing narrative work. One of the problems is that there's a lot of grant money for documentaries. Not a lot. There is grant money because it's more, quote, legitimate or educational. But once you step away from documentary into fiction, almost all of that dries up. I was in a unique position because I'm a professor in the UCLA Film School, and I can apply for research grants through UCLA. But interestingly enough, because my work is being a filmmaker, I can apply for the grants that scientists are applying for there, but I actually can use it for my film research. And it's interesting because I don't even remember where I said that in what news article or whatever, but yes, that's absolutely true. And I used that money to take this big looping trip around Iowa and to go visit Tom at the beginning of the trip, and to really think about what I wanted to do here, but it was kind of fluky because I'm an educator as well. But it's and there are these workshops and there are these development organizations for independent feature filmmakers, but there are very few of them and they're very competitive. So it's always really tricky because features are not under a nonprofit umbrella. Documentaries are often and almost always under a nonprofit umbrella, but features don't fit under that. So so getting those grants is
So
always.
if there's a chance to make money, they're less likely to